Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Femme Force Podcast. My name is Rachel Paskman, and I am your host. And today I am coming to you from beautiful Carlsbad, California. And I get to be joined today with the second member of my family, my cousin Abbey, who is a mom of two, a corporate girly, and an entrepreneur, kind of doing it all. So thank you so much for being here.
Of course. I'm so excited to talk to you on your podcast.
Yes. So Abbey, I've known you my whole life, obviously. You're a mom of two. Mm-hmm. You're an entrepreneur who has just founded her company, Mattie, a company dedicated to supporting corporate moms on maternity leave, all while having a full-time corporate job.
That's right.
So how did you kind of get into this journey of it's hard enough to juggle being a mom of two and a wife and a friend and a daughter and all of the things that you do, and a dog mom, and all of the things that you do on top of then wanting to kind of create your own thing. So tell us from the beginning, like what your background is, a little bit about how you got into the corporate role that you are now, and like what it was like kind of transitioning into moms.
Yeah. So I have built my career in marketing. I've been doing it for about 15 years now. Spread a bunch of different industries. I started at Forever 21 and its fast fashion boom back in the 2000s. Spent a good portion of my career at Oakley, which is based here in Southern California, running digital marketing globally for them. And then I decided to try to focus a little bit more on brands that are involved in my communities, and which is where I landed in Boochcraft. And so I've been with them for about 3 years and absolutely love it. Over my past kind of two positions, I've evolved into my new role of mom, balancing it both with having my job and trying to raise a family. And I think there's something that happens when you go through that transition as an individual where you join a tribe of women that go through it and can only understand it the way
that you
can once you're in it. And as I've gone through maternity leave, and I think having positions where I have direct reports and I have project leadership and I have to offboard things in a way to make sure the ball continues to roll in the right direction, I spent a lot of time building my offboarding plans to make sure my teams were set up for success, and did it once and kind of got into the mom role and then referenced back to those materials the second time around. And as I was going through it, I'm going, God, I spend a lot of time putting this stuff together. I spend a lot of, it's almost like doing 9 months of work and then 4 months of work after that. And I just kind of sat back and I was like, I bet you other moms struggle with this. And when you're pregnant with a toddler and have a bit of a higher stress job, adding that layer becomes a bit of a challenge. So that's where the entrepreneurship piece started to evolve from. A bit more of me wanting to participate better in this community of mom and building tools and using the tools and resources that I really had already created, just manipulating them a little to be a little more generic to allow other women to use them too. So they weren't starting from scratch like I felt like I was. So that's kind of how I landed where I am now. So I think my entrepreneurship was born from a passion project and something where I just sat back and said, hey, I'm already doing all this work. I bet you other moms, other women can find value in it. And that's really where it was born from.
I mean, and I can't imagine being a mom in general. I am childless by choice.
Excellent aunt.
Yes.
You're an excellent
I'm
aunt.
an excellent aunt. I really am. But just to have that responsibility of being able to do that, let alone, I don't know how I would even tell my boss. And I know he would be super supportive. Kevin, if you're ever listening to this, I know you would be very supportive of me and the company would be supportive. But I feel like I literally would be like, so I'm pregnant. I'm so sorry. I swear I'm going to get everything done. I'm going to make sure everything's fine. Everything's going to be okay. Like I'm going to make sure before I leave, and you can call me while I'm out. I promise I'll pick up my phone. Like I'll answer whenever. Like just the dread of knowing that like I have to just not only leave my team and like the anxiety of giving my work to someone else, not just like giving them for like to them to possibly do it better than I do, but to also, pile on. Like we're definitely in an age with companies, I feel like that we're working at the bare minimum.
Yeah.
You're working.
And you're stretching everything to the thinnest
layer.
Yes,
the thinnest of the thinnest. And like, I couldn't imagine even doing that. And then there are no resources and I work for a large corporation. Right. I don't even know what I would do. So when you first got pregnant, were you like, oh shit, Or were you like, okay, like we're like, I can do this. You're in the prime of your career.
Yeah. I have always been a very career-driven individual, so I definitely have those anxieties telling leadership. And I think both situations, when I was pregnant and had to tell a leader, I was telling a man.
Yeah.
And I think I don't want to put anything out there that's untrue, but I feel like it might have been easier telling a woman, especially maybe a woman that was a mom and had gone through it. I think that it's just instinctual that you want to soften the blow, right? Because you are telling someone, hey, I'm going to be gone for 4 months, and then I'm going to be a bit changed. Even when I come back, I might have different needs with my schedule. I might have more time off requests. I might, just be an involved person. And I think everyone's aware of that. I think it's very normal for every individual in that situation to have anxiety telling their manager or their direct report or whoever in the company is there. And I think that's a big reason I would pore over these, like the email to HR and the way to communicate with my boss and how I was going to speak about things in a way, or how I was going to ensure them nothing was going to fall through the cracks, right? Yep. And I think that that's, another reason why I've wanted to get some tools together for people to not feel so alone in that process, or be able to just check, like, hey, what did you say? How did you approach this situation? Or what are other moms doing out there? How was it received? How do you deal with a difficult situation where maybe you don't have a receptive boss, or maybe you deal with a little backlash of stepping away from your career for a few months? So a lot of that's things that I'm trying to, use my resource of women in work that have families and have gone through it to kind of build a community around, like, how do you have these conversations in a real way? But also being realistic that everyone's situation is going to be unique. And I think one thing I've always told myself when going through those roles is, if family's important to me, it always has been. I think having my own immediate family now is exponentially made that more impactful.
Yeah.
If the company, even if I love it to pieces, if I'm not supported in that transition in my life, it's probably not going to be the right role for me long term, right? I think my kids aren't going anywhere, and they get sick, and there's school functions, and I think if that's critical for me, I want to be with an organization that supports that. And I've been very lucky, I think, especially with Boochcraft, that they are very family oriented and have been very supportive. But I know that's not the situation for a lot of people, and it wasn't really the situation with my first role, where a lot of change had been going on. It was, in an acquisition space, it was very involved with some capital VC funding situations. And it was a very, very performance-driven organization where losing your head of marketing for 3 months was not exciting to ananybody.
I mean, and 3 months isn't even that long.
No, it's
when
not.
You really think about it.
It's really not.
What is the legal maternity leave in California?
No. It varies. You can take a month prior to going out on official leave, depending on how you give birth. You can get 6 to 8 weeks, and then you can tack on the family bonding, which is an additional 8 weeks. And we have it really good in California. I know we're very blessed with the amount of time we get with support from the government in the state of California. So I was very lucky in that capacity.
I mean, you also have a really supportive partner.
Yes.
He shout out Dean.
Yeah.
A really supportive partner who, you both have really high power careers, and you have 2 little boys, and you're trying to juggle it all and like be a present mom, be a present wife. Like, what have you learned from having your first child to like having your second on how to kind of
life evolves? Yeah. Being in a working space, you have to have 2 very supportive parents. Me and my husband, especially with the second now, we split everything, right? In the mornings, each of us takes a child. We go over our schedules at the beginning of the week, making sure each of us can be able to commit to what we need to commit to both grow our careers.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely more modern these days in the way people look at family and the family balance with 2 working parents. And most families have to have 2 working parents. I think that that's a very
dual
common...
income isn't it? It has to be nowadays.
It's very common. So for us, it's just about aligning schedule and having dual respect that each person's career is important, no matter what their paycheck looks like or what their role is in their organization, because it's as much bringing in money for our family as it's something fulfilling that each of us get to do outside of the home. So yes, very lucky that my husband is supportive, but I think for any working parent out there, expectation setting before the expectation is
Yeah.
needed, I think is the most critical in starting to outline some of those plans. And my husband and I do a good job talking to each other about what's most important, right? You know, my husband likes to get up in the morning and work out, and he's expressed that to me. So we try to make those things work. My husband knows I need time to see friends and spend time with my family.
Yeah.
That's when they're in town, or my mom. And so he makes sure we have time for that, and he can be coverage for the kids when I need those moments. And the same goes for work. We both network, we both have late night meetings, we both have early morning meetings, and just aligning the schedules to make sure we have coverage and it's supported on both sides is important. And that happens through conversation. We have a lot of chats,
I love that. She's having
Yeah.
fireside chats like every day.
basically.
And then what were the challenges that you had when you took your first maternity leave? I mean, not just telling your boss, but were you just like, I'm having a baby, now what?
I mean, I think there's a lot, I think
I
with
would
my
be like that.
Yeah. I mean, you're going through a major life change. I think that you're definitely more emotional. I think there's reasons from the body that you are, but I think you go through more change in that situation than I think you ever go through in your potentially adult life. I realize there's a lot of different situations, but for me, that was my biggest change. My first maternity leave, I think it was taking a step back, the amount of preparation that you need to make sure your team is successful. I had a very interesting first leave. My baby boy came 5 weeks early, so it was a bit of a shock. I wasn't quite as prepared as I probably would have been, but I think that gave me a lesson to kind of build a timeline when I was pregnant with my second, to make sure like they come when they want to come, and you got to be prepared. You can't wait till the 11th hour. So, I mean, a lot of it's just getting yourself mentally ready, preparing, not just for your team, but for your peace of mind.
Yeah.
I think making sure that you have all the preparation in place. It is a full-time job to do it, but if you piece it together slowly, you have a plan, it's very doable. And I told my boss this last time when I was leaving, I was like, everyone should just pretend they're having a baby, because you could basically take all of the documents I created, give it to somebody, and they can do my job.
Yeah.
Right? It's a really great succession planning tool as much as it is a maternity planning tool.
No, but I love that it's focused on moms, because I feel like there are a lot of times like passed over and like, oh, they'll be back in 6 months. How was your vacation?
Oh, that's the least favorite statement of all time.
You're like, this was not a vacation. This was a lot of work and no sleep and everything else that we go through.
Yeah.
But what are the tools that you've created for Mattie? So tell me a little bit about that. Like, what have you put together and what's available for moms?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I just have timelines and checklists. Here's when you should be doing certain things. Here's when you should be thinking about doing certain things. Here's when certain communications need to happen, both from you can do it now, but you're really not like legally obligated to do it until these points, because everyone's going to have different comfort levels with their boss, and they're going to have different projects going on. They're like, I just want to finish this project and then tell people. So I have a few flags in there. I've created a lot of workbooks, things that you can basically fill in the blank to look when you hand over, very organized and professional, but also helps you get to think about things you should be thinking about with handover to make sure things find a home temporarily while you're gone. Comprehensive handover documents, how to compile one, a template, an outline for what goes where and what you should be thinking of, how-tos of building successful SOPs, standard operating procedures. What else is in there? Communication guides, right? What to say when, who to send it to. Extra.
You wouldn't think about. You're like, I tell my manager and then.
Yeah. I mean, you got to tell HR, you're communicating with your team. You need to tell them a week out. You got to communicate before you're coming back. I mean, even to the littlest thing, like little out of office messages, a couple options of like what to say if you're in a more serious organization and one you can have a little bit more fun with. So simple things like that. But then really complex tools like a handover document, what needs to go in there with guides of how you should be thinking, questions you should be asking yourself to really bring it to life in a successful way. I think in total there's about 17 tools.
That's awesome.
Some people might need to use them all. Yeah. Some people might need to use 10 of them, right? But the goal is that there's something in there so you can hand over a very professional looking kit so that when you leave, you look good leaving.
And then what do you have for when you want to come back, though, or if you want to come back? I know those things, they can change.
I have some goal setting guidelines. So when you're coming back, how to talk about your kind of 90-day integration with your boss, the goals that you'll set with yourself for successful planning, and how to report out on those. So, when you come back, you look engaged. you look ready to kind of take things back on. And then little things like what you need to think about if you're going to continue breastfeeding in the office. What are your rights? What does your bag need to look like? Communication to your team, meetings that you should be setting up to reintegrate successfully. All kind of very frameworked, because each organization is going to have their own kind of nuances.
Yeah.
But it gives you a little bit of a stepstone to say like, okay, if you can print out your kind of like back to work checklist, and if you go through that on your first day, you're going to kind of set yourself up for your first 60 days for sure.
I mean, those are things I would never even begin to think of beyond any means, shape, or form.
Not to mention, you don't think of them when now in your brain you're going, okay, I got to get to daycare at this time, and I got to make sure the nanny has this many bottles, and I got to, get to pick up at this time, and, different things. You got people calling you all the time, checking in on how you're doing and what they need to do for the baby. So just having the extra support. I think that's the goal, is just being supportive. And if you use a little bit, great. If you use all of them, fabulous.
Yeah.
If you just feel supported and feel like someone else is there going through it with you, even better.
That's amazing. And what are the steps that you've kind of been taking to transition from, I've used this all the time. I'm using this in my career. I probably tell my friends about it, or let them know, into making this like a full-fledged business.
Yeah. So I'm at the very beginning stages of this. So I'm still working through a lot of those plans, but I think first and foremost, it was adapting every tool to be much more generic than what would just work for my position. Right. And I did engage with individuals outside of my industry, including yourself.
I've not had a baby, so this breastfeeding in the office was a little outside my. I was like, can't really help on that one, but I think it looks great.
That's okay. Just spell check it. But I did want to make sure that all of the tools could kind of transcend different organizations and different roles. Right. I didn't want it to feel overtly connected to my type of role. So I did engage with a bunch of individuals, professional moms. I'm trying to keep it very focused to supporting other mothers. So did a bit of that, obviously built some packaging, packaged things together so that they were easily accessible, and planning to, really go after mom communities, really try to give other moms a tool to refer their friends who are going through maternity leave, really make it an organic space, but obviously we'll promote it with some paid components as well. But my hope is, even if it just helps a few moms, I think it's tools that would have just sat deep in my Google Drive that I've just pulled forward and said, if you want a little help, I'm here to help you.
I mean, but that's amazing though. This is how like the best ideas start. And it's 2024 and there isn't anything, I Google searched. There's nothing like out there that is like this company that is offering these kind of tools. And moms are a huge part of the population globally. Yeah. Working moms, even more. So it's confusing how these haven't even been thought of from corporations or HR to be like, hey, this is a big step for you. Let us help you. And
I think that was really eye-opening to me too. Going on maternity leave twice, the lack of expertise and resources, even in the HR departments. Generally, they have the legal information that they can share with you, but then you're kind of on your own to offboard successfully. And really the people you leave in your wake, if you do it incorrectly, is your team. Yeah. And I know anyone that cares a lot about their career and a lot about their progression in their career cares about their team. Yeah. And those are the people you want to take care of. So not having those tools, or having to just whip something together that you're like, I don't even know if this is enough, or I don't even know if this is going to be helpful, can be really overwhelming. And you're already overwhelmed in this state of life. So again, it was something I would have liked.
No, 1,000%. Yeah. I mean, you're taking this on with the 2 kids. Your husband's super supportive. Linda's Gigi of the year. Oh, so
I have a huge support system.
You have a huge support system. How do you plan to like really balance this? Do you want to make this like a huge thing? Do you want this to kind of take over? And
yeah, I'm kind of just taking it a day at the time. I think right now I just want it to get out there, right? And be helpful and resourceful. If it takes off, I will be ecstatic. But at the core, I'm going to be a working mom, right? I think it makes what I do in that space and with Mattie authentic, being able to do both. And, I see expansion plans for it of, how to, be a good working mom in both your home and your career life. I think there's different things you have to balance that sometimes can look weaker or can look more challenging or can be less appealing when going for certain roles or certain positions or certain project leads, and helping women navigate how to use things to their advantage. I had a wonderful mentor when I was at Oakley who was a mom, and she always kind of positioned it in a way, because we were both in marketing, and she goes, the best thing about being a mom that people don't realize is I know the trends because the trends are in my living room. The trends are sitting around my table.
Oh, that's so smart.
And so I have these conversations with them and I use them to my benefit. And, letting moms know, hey, you can spin some of this stuff to show, yeah, I'm, older and, I'm trying to market to Gen Z. I have a bunch of Gen Z sitting at my dinner table. And just realizing they're an asset as much as they are potentially a fear when you're trying to grow in a corporate space.
Moms are also the number one buyers in the economy.
Yes, they are.
They're buying everything. They love the Amazon. They love everything that they're like the diapers, the groceries, all of that. That's coming mostly from moms.
They handle the wallet.
They do. So it makes more sense for that. So like not having these corporations having these kind of things, it's a little baffling to me. Do you think that corporations will be able to use Mattie in this kind of sense to help?
That's a vision for it. Really providing some resources and tools at an HR level for consistency, for the way you offboard and the way that you support moms going on maternity leave. So that's one sales channel that I'm considering, right? Direct to consumer will be one. Support yourself, show off, do excellent offboarding, but getting in with some corporations that maybe bring it in at an HR level to just provide an extra tool to help those moms go out in style.
I think it's just not just the go out in style, but how to come back. That would be my biggest fear. Would be like, all right, I went out, I did the thing. I had the baby. Like I'm raising that. It's alive.
Yep.
Hopefully. Like I'm raising this child. I'm keeping a life alive. Like, and now I have to go back to work. Yeah. I have to reintegrate into work. I have to have adult conversations. It's no more Blippy on the TV. None of that's happening. But I have to go back to this corporate life while also trying to balance that. And I think that for me would be the most scary part.
It is. And I'd say there's always that little, Sunday scary that happens the Sunday before you're going back into work of, do I even remember how to do my job? Right.
Yeah.
And I think you just have to build that confidence again. And I think a big part of what I'm trying to do is give moms the confidence they deserve by taking some things off their plate. So the reintegration plans probably are a place that I could spend a little bit more time with Mattie and really give a lot of resources and tools to those women and those individuals about, how to do it like a badass. But, there is a lot in there already when it comes to reintegration planning and goal setting and kind of showing back up and stepping in with some pizzazz, right? And being like, I'm back. So I think there's good things to come in that space from the tool, but it is scary. Yeah. And I think every mom needs to know that everyone's scared going back into it, and you are going into probably potentially a changed organization or something where maybe someone failed while you were out or someone succeeded while you were out. And those are all things that you navigate, but you have to remember every mom that's done it has walked back into that situation.
What have you learned from being a mom that has really helped you transition into your leadership style?
I think being a mom, you definitely learn to be a mentor in a different way, right? I think I look at the individuals on my team and I watch the growth that my children can go through, and you go, growth is available to people if they have the right tools and resources given to them. And I think I definitely have taken some of those learnings and that patience. I think my patience has grown exponentially.
With two also,
being a mom.
1,000%.
But I think that there's a lot of those lessons you can pull through in the way that you work with your team. I think I've learned how to slow down and step back and explain things in different ways, because I realize everyone hears differently, and you just get a sense of compassion. I think my compassion level has increased coming back, but that's something I also have to fight, right? Something where when I'm sitting in a room and needing to make decisions and needing to make hard decisions, you got to be able to check that stuff at the door too and still stay firm. But I think being self-aware is
more emotional IQ.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's growing, like if you're working, especially when you're arguing with a toddler over like.
Yeah, it's actually refreshing to leave that argument and have it with an adult. So
a little more better. So we've talked a little bit about like the future of Mattie and your plans to expand and the impact. Is there any way you feel like Mattie will be giving back, not just to the moms that are on the site?
You mean beyond moms?
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, something I love, and I've obviously stepped into entrepreneurship. I think something I'm looking to offer a lot of women is a way to find purpose beyond what they're doing
Yeah.
in the home potentially. I think I've had a lot of conversations with moms recently who maybe did leave their career, right? And are feeling like they are missing an element of themselves, but they don't feel ready to go back, or they don't know if they want to go back. And showing that a working mom has a lot of definitions, right? And you can find that purpose in a lot of different ways, whether that is starting something on your own, whether that is participating in something in your community, whether that is volunteerism. I think that there's a lot of ways that we can kind of come together and bring moms in. I think we're also ignoring the fact that a lot more men are taking leave.
Yeah.
A lot more men are taking paternity leave and wanting to be more involved in the home. And, you know, I think there's been some stats that the millennial dad is exponentially 90% more involved in the upbringing of their children than, you know, Gen X or baby boomers. So we're seeing this progression towards paternity leave become even more important. And I think these tools can, obviously my website is pink, but I think these tools can translate to support dads taking leave and offboarding, especially if they want to take advantage of full leaves that can be up to 3 or 4 months. So yeah, I think there's plans for it to widen beyond a working mom. I think it's going to be a working parent.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, being everyone wants to bond with their child.
Yeah.
And I think my focus just with launch is around moms because it's the closest connection I have to the situation. But then I think even beyond that, it's a tool for a mom to be able to be the best version of themselves.
And I think the sky's the limit with this. I really do. When the minute you told me, I was like, this is brilliant. This is going to be huge.
I was like, Rachel, do you think people would want this?
And I'm like, I don't even have a baby, nor am I planning for one, but I love this organization. I'm like, so I just get a checklist and I'm going to know what to do. It's so it's such an uncertain time as it is. So to think like there's toolkits out there to help. It makes me feel more comfortable if I ever did choose to have a child. Like,
you don't feel so alone.
You don't feel alone. You're not like, there's other moms that work in different orgs that are doing things, but like there's other women just out in the world kicking ass every day, and like they're doing it, and like there's tools to help you.
Absolutely. And I think that was one thing. I think ideas are born from need, right? I mean, maybe some aren't, but I was a case study. I was a case study in myself of needing the tool and not having it, and feeling like my life would have been exponentially less stressful if I was just filling in a worksheet versus, and trust me, I know everyone who works in a corporate job, but you can't just fill in my job with a worksheet. Of course, there's work that goes into it, and you have to think about your projects and your timelines and your timeline, but it gives you the base, right? It gives you the tool to get started and to not have to come up with everything from scratch.
No. It's like the ChatGPT for moms.
Yeah.
So it's so great for that. It might be your tagline. I love that. Well, I think this is going to be huge, and I'm so excited to see how it grows and how you grow with it. And I'm going to, when it goes public, guys, just FYI, I'm going to have stock in the beginning. So I'm going to ask you one final question that I like to ask all of my guests. If you could give one piece of advice to your 16-year-old self, what would that be?
I think when I was 16, I was very self-conscious. I grew up very self-conscious. And I think the thing that I almost think like what I would tell my kids when they turn 16. And it would be something around, you're going to do fine. You're going to do good things. You're going to do great things. And don't get so wrapped up in what other people think about you, because it's your opinion of yourself that matters the most. And you're going to be pretty proud of where you land. So I think it would be around self-confidence. When I was 16, I think that I lacked it and I struggled with it, and I shouldn't have.
Because you had all the tools all along.
I had all the tools all along, and I just, wanted to be cool, and I wasn't.
She was cool, guys. She was a cheerleader and everything. So she was very cool. I thought she was super cool. She was my cousin living in California. I wasn't living in Ohio. I'm still living in Ohio. So that's how
you're back to Ohio.
I am back to Ohio. I had a life. Thank you so much for coming on and spending the time and teaching my listeners that they're going to have these options out there. And I think this is going to be great. Amazing. Tell everybody where they can find Mattie at.
You can find Mattie. I keep looking at this light. You can find Mattie at Mattie. It's with 2 T's, Mattie, moms, MOMS.com.
And she got that from maternity leave. So
Yes.
I was like, what is Mattie? Is this some child I don't
Like
know
mat
about?
leave.
Like mat leave. And I was like, this is so
The
clever.
lingo. Yeah.
I didn't know any of the lingo, and now I've learned so much. So you can follow Femme Force on Instagram and wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks, everyone. We'll tune in next week.